Hey, this is Dan with The Hunt, the video game collecting podcast. Hey, this is Dan. Today's podcast is going to be about PlayStation, specifically the PlayStation 1, the start of it all. From its very beginnings in 1988 with a contract with Nintendo, to the falling out with Nintendo, to releasing against the Sega Saturn, and then we're going to go into the long box, so we have some collecting aspect of it. Ken Kurage was working for Sony, and he convinced Nintendo to use his SBC 700 sound processor. He was motivated to work in video games after watching his daughter play Famicom. He saw how interested she was in the game and decided that was the market that he wanted to work in. Though Ken was actually let go from Sony, at least he was going to be let go, so the president of Sony stepped in, saw his potential, and kept him on as a protege. Nintendo actually approached Sony for a CD-ROM add-on. Now, in 1988, Nintendo and Sony actually signed a contract to bring a new system to market and called it PlayStation, or SNES CD. But also, Sony planned to develop a Sony-branded SNES-compatible home entertainment system that would also play CDs. The contract between them would give Sony huge international rights, and it actually was a very lopsided contract to give Sony a lot of control over the video game leader, Nintendo. In 1991, at CES in Vegas, they were supposed to announce the debut of the PlayStation. The father of Nintendo, Yamauchi, deemed that the contract was unacceptable. He saw that it would give Sony too much control. Yamauchi secretly canceled all plans to maintain existing license structure. Unknown to Sony, Yamauchi would give a more favorable contract to the company's rival, Philips. So there was bad blood definitely brewing during this time. At CES, Nintendo actually severed ties. Sony, devastated by this, decided to push on by themselves. At first, they actually talked to Sega about collaborating, but Sega actually took it to the board of directors and rejected the idea. PlayStation pushed on. Here comes the debut of PlayStation 1, 1994. Sega announces that they'll be releasing their Sega Saturn for $399. PlayStation decides that they're going to release their system for $299. PlayStation debuted in Japan in 1994 and debuted in the US in 1995. Sony would go on to sell 100,000 units on the first day and 2 million by 6 months in. It ran from 1995 to 2006. It released 7,918 games and selling 962 million units. Now that's the brief history of how PlayStation 1 came to be and the success that it came with and the success that followed. Now we'll go into my personal experience with PlayStation and we'll go into the long boxes. I can remember the first time I saw a PlayStation and it blew my mind. I honestly don't even remember the title of the game that I played. It was a wrestling game. It was at my neighbor 2 doors up and I just was flabbergasted by how amazing the graphics looked. As I said before, I don't think it would amaze you these days to see those graphics, but to me, being a 10-year-old kid, seeing these graphics, I mean, it was definitely mind-boggling. I personally remember playing quite a few of these games, and I remember having long boxes. I remember Rayman. I remember Twisted Metal. I mean, Twisted Metal was my jam. I remember playing as the clown ice cream truck, and I remember Ridge Racer, Tekken. I mean, these were games that I played and barely could remember because it was so long ago, but you mentioned Rayman. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely played that. I was hooked on Rayman 1 and 2. There's history and nostalgia there, and I'm sure a lot of you have that. So let's move on to long boxes and the very first games that came out for the PlayStation and the cases they were in. PlayStation's debut games included Ridge Racer, Street Fighter the movie, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, and the only game that was actually exclusive for the system, Ridge Racer. It really was the beginning of some great gaming that was more than Nintendo's usual kid-friendly. PlayStation came out the gate swinging, and there was about 104 titles that were long box for a PlayStation before they switched over to the standard jewel case. There's 3 different types of the long box. The first one is the plastic, the big jewel case, which there was 34. Then you had the flat spine. There's actually 50 where the spine is ridged, plastic is ridged. The flat long box had a foam brick at the bottom, also nothing to hold the manual. It's really hard to find the foam because that just got this first thing getting tossed. The big jewel cases, they got cracked very easily. The plastic cases for the long box were like the Sega CD and Sega Saturn case, made out of plastic. When it comes to the Ridge cases. Sometimes a game would have both cases of ridged and flat. So you'll find variations. It's kind of a fun thing to collect because they're kind of getting hard to find and there's a lot of variations and there's so much unknown. And that's why I'm making this podcast on the long box today, is because to shed a little bit of light. So maybe it inspires someone to really go out there and collect all 104 titles. They're hard to find. There's history there, and it's the very beginning of PlayStation. These games are the very beginning. You know, the long boxes are before anything else for PlayStation. So you have the history. They look cool and it's something unique. So I hope you enjoyed going down this rabbit hole with me. I could go over all the titles, but you could go online and look at the list. And if you have any questions or anything to add, feel free to hit me up and always share the information you have. Hopefully I covered a lot of it. And if there's anything I missed, definitely let me know. And thanks for listening in. And we'll keep on trying to share knowledge so the community grows and gets better, stronger day by day. Thanks and take care.